Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I will be ranking every movie that I saw in 2022. But first, hi, my name is Tyler and I love film, and today, well, let's just get into it. But first, I'd like to look back on the year of 2022, since this year has been a very interesting year for film that I am glad that I have kept up with. 2022 has been a year of long run times, second movies, and never before seen theatrical experiences. There have been many movies released this year that I've enjoyed thoroughly, and many movies that I don't think could have been released at any other time, because plenty of them have a very similar approach and execution to them that is tweaked ever so slightly every time. That is very fresh and new, since we haven't gotten this kind of thing in any other year. Overall, this year seems to have had a lot of films that have taken more risks and tried to do something new when compared to something such as last year. Not all the films this year are great, and the great ones aren't as great as they could be, but a lot of them also happen to be pushing for a very unique experience that only film can provide, which should be applauded. Finally, when compared to last year, this year seems to have learned a lot more from recent years, as there don't seem to be as many insufferable inserts of comedy except for in the movies that started those trends, and doesn't seem to be overly meta, even though there are plenty of meta things that came out this year, but not everything seems to be as front and center as it was last year. And this year is much more reflective on film itself, which is why I say it learned its lesson, or is starting to learn, since it is reflecting on recent years and past years, as we've gotten multiple films this year in the last 2 months that have been about film and love of cinema. Those are just some things that I noticed. If this year is anything to go by, it is either a warning sign or a sign for hope for cinema, as if more things come out like the good films that have come out this year and try to improve upon them, we can have cinema and movies being more theatrical and cinematic than ever. And if they take more from the lesser films that have come out this year, then, well, we're doomed. These are movies that I wasn't able to watch this year or get a grasp on, that didn't make the list, not in any particular order. I might make a part B to this video titled GES 38B if I watch these movies and want to put them in the list. Without further ado, let's finally get into the actual video. These are the bottom movies that I have watched this year. If you know anything about these movies, my ratings here are pretty justifiable and pretty much speak for themselves. But since I put it as the worst film of the year, Pinocchio is what I will say a few words about. Pinocchio is a hard movie to get through because it gives you no reason to make the characters compelling, because they're not even entertaining on screen. Pinocchio himself is unsettling, inhuman, and annoying, and no other characters are given any time for us to connect with them, and we are given no reason. This film has a few slight moments, and it is a shame that Robert Zemeckis directed this, and he was likely mandated by Disney, which is why this turned out so poorly. But just to cement this even further, the movie does not have any strong character arcs, themes, and has a plot that is not well done. It's not a good adaptation of the 1940s movie. It also makes a bunch of unnecessary changes, in which none of them pay off. That is why I give this film a 3.5 out of 10. All of these ratings pretty much also speak for themselves. The one I'd like to point out is Amsterdam, because of how surprisingly unwatchable and unpleasant it was. Its pacing was not very good, neither was its editing or production design, and that's not even considering the writing and how the writing impacted some of the performances in the movie, and how the direction wasn't really anything too special. Yeah, it wasn't great. Yes, more reviews that pretty much speak for themselves. The Gray Man was disappointing, but I hate that this is now becoming a trope of something that I say, but had its moments. And Thor Love and Thunder, I already talked about in a video that was released yesterday. Now, the next movie I'd like to point out and talk about is Elvis. I know this movie has its fans, and is gonna get some Oscar nominations and wins, but I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie, and I do believe it to be a term that I don't like to use, style over substance, as it is very visually pleasing and pleasing on all other superficial levels, visually and narratively, but the film doesn't all completely work, especially with its plot and pacing, which aren't great at times. And by the end, the movie kind of loses steam and doesn't really gather a clear point, more so as it kind of pushes one in your face that hasn't been properly developed. But there is a great ending scene, and it does feel like something that is Oscar worthy, but I don't think it to be in reality something that is all that good. That is why I've given this film a 7.4 out of 10. Now, in this patch here, spanning from Father Stu to The Rise of Gru, yeah, I had to say that. I found Father Stu a surprisingly decent movie. Barbarian didn't work for me, so I don't understand why everybody else liked it, but for some of its parts, it really impressed me. Halloween Ends, I will get into in a moment, and the other three above are self-explanatory and awesome. Okay, so Halloween Ends is a movie that works well thematically with the rest of the Halloween trilogy. While it is not a good horror movie, as it is not scary at all, or a good Michael Myers movie, it's not trying to be a good Michael Myers movie. It's trying to push the Halloween franchise into a different kind of anthology series. Whether that worked or not, for what it is, it's okay. I give this film a 7.5 out of 10. More self-explanatory ratings, I'd like to point out Bullet Train, which was surprisingly fun, and I think David Leitch's best directed film, but not his best film, and it was a lot of fun. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was gone over in a video yesterday. And my next victim is Violent Night, which is a film that I found very fun and entertaining. It's not high art, but I like seeing blood fly everywhere. Before I get into the top 20, these are all films that I thoroughly enjoyed, including Lightyear, which I thought was not that bad, and in parts was exactly what I wanted, a space opera movie, adventure movie, but in other parts it fell short of that. While Ambulance is a very solid little film, oh yeah, I forgot to mention Weird the Al Yankovic Story, also awesome and surprisingly good. Devotion is a very solid movie. The new Scream was a thoroughly entertaining movie, kind of reinvigorated the franchise, and was still a good Scream movie while trying to do other things and comment on bigger things. And Dog, well, that's a masterpiece. Getting to the top 20, first is Glass Onion. While I don't think it is a great film, I think it is on the verge of greatness and was just held back by a few plot elements that seemed to rush and a script that felt kind of like a first draft at some points. I don't think it is anywhere near as good as the original Knives Out, but it is a fun little mystery movie that is everything you would want it to be and more. Triangle of Sadness was actually a fascinating commentary on money, even though it was very simplistic. Avatar: The Way of the Water, yeah, it's everything you'd expect it to be. The Northman is a very layered story with its themes and its symbolism. It's great. Go watch an actually good YouTube video about it. And RRR, well, it's on Netflix. Go watch it. Best thing you've ever seen in your life. House, a stop-motion film on Netflix. It's great. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, I think is slightly overrated, but in all of its greatness, it is remarkable. But I felt like if a few major things were changed, it could have reached and became a perfect movie, a perfect experience, and a perfect blockbuster. Beavis and Butthead was surprisingly smart, clever, and of course funny. Terror on the Prairie was the most decent Western seen in a long time. Jurassic World Dominion, I've already made a video on it, but recently an extended cut has been released that improves on a few major problems with the film. It doesn't solve these problems, but there is at least 40 more minutes of cut content, and the stuff that was added in really made a difference. Top Gun Maverick improves greatly on the first movie and is its own thing entirely. It has some great cinematography, is purely entertaining, is an actually American movie, and it is great that this movie found success. The Banshees of Inisherin really is a great movie. It is a great study on friendship and morality. It introduces its ideas and themes simply, but then builds upon them in complex ways that you have to look deeper to notice. And the most surprising thing about this film to me was that after I stopped watching it, everything that happened really hit me. Tar is a complex, well-paced study of what the pursuit of success and the achievement of success can do to a person and the effect it can have on all facets of their life, including their thoughts, philosophy, actions, family, and dignity. All Quiet on the Western Front is a very well-done war film that builds upon something like Paths of Glory, though not as good as something like Paths of Glory. This film touches on things about World War I that have never been touched on to this level in movies, and it really connects you to its characters and takes you on a journey through the cycle of war. Now it's off to my top 5 films of the year, and as all of the ratings are revealed, I don't think any film this year reached a point where it was the perfect cinematic experience for me or a perfect movie for me. But a few came close, and a few are very worthwhile. I do not say that to degrade any of these movies. I just wanted to point that out. Starting with Senior, documentary released on Netflix this month about Robert Downey Sr., Robert Downey Jr.'s father. Obviously, yes, the Robert Downey Jr., and it is very good. It is a very unconventional documentary, but I think it works very well. It is very touching and takes on the themes of life, mistakes, and death. The Fabelmans is sadly Steven Spielberg's latest flop, but I believe to be one of his best films, since it is filmed so masterfully as Steven Spielberg has mastered his style of filmmaking and the way he makes movies so completely. This movie, of course, is no exception, as I just pointed out, and this movie tackles the theme of the love for movies better than any other film released this year. The film is very entertaining, enjoyable, and endearing to watch, and it perfectly nails its themes on the head, which are of the divide and intersection of art and family. Babylon is a controversial and ambitious film with very big problems, but when looked at how it's supposed to be looked at, can really be like an experience like no other for a movie this year, as it is about the artistic value of film and how Hollywood and people are affected by it. And I think it portrays it very well in the times where things aren't dragged out and exaggerated. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is a wonderful film to watch, and one of the best stop-motion films I think has ever been made. Everything with its story, themes, and characters are done so well and with so much style and in a way that you've never seen before, making it a very unique film to watch. Decision to Leave, my number 1 film of this year, was just released and I think has the greatest quality out of any film this year, with its direction, characters, plot, and the way it's able to keep you hooked as you don't know what's going to happen next. And then when everything happens, when everything finishes, when the dust kind of clears and everything comes in on itself and kind of collects, you think you have something great, but you only just realize there's so much more to this film. And that is worthy of a number 1 spot.